And this is for people who want to write research papers in any field, and just an overview to get started. So the first thing is every paper is going to have a structure, and we're going to have a way to do literature search. That's the next thing, and we'll talk about using Google Scholar, etc. We're going to manage references, generate figures, prep the document in LaTeX, and polish it, and then do open publishing. So let's get started. So paper structure. So paper structure is the first thing you want to do. You could do this on a piece of paper or on a notepad. And the first thing you want to think about is the considerations. So what's your audience? How long is your paper? The depth of your paper? The scope of your paper? And the purpose. So I would say this is probably the most critical piece you need to understand on your brainstorming before you start writing your paper. Let's go over an example. So here's a paper that I wrote for a computer science conference called ACM Multimedia. And you can see right here, the audience here is going to be for this specific audience here at ACM Multimedia, which is a computing conference. So I know that. I know the length was limited to 8 pages plus references. So that's easy to know. Usually people, the more they read, the more tired they get. So if you want to be as brief as possible, that's the best. And let's go over now what are the pieces of a paper. So we're going to have an abstract. An abstract is a summary of the paper with all the elevator pitch of what you're actually trying to do in your research. You're going to have an introduction, which basically describes the problem, your motivation, why you're doing this research. For example, in this one, we're talking about chronic disease as a big problem that's motivating us. And then what you want to do is you want to start talking about what are the key factors you're trying to address in this paper. The second thing is you want to talk about related work. So that's this right here. And in related work, you talk about other people's work. So what have they done in the same field that's similar to what you're doing, and what are you pulling upon? And here's where you're going to have a lot of references. You can see these numbers here. They refer to all the references, and you would organize this. Doesn't need to be super long, but it's helpful to have enough so it looks like you did a good job in understanding the field. Next piece is going to be your methods and your system. So here's our methods. We have 2 sections in this paper. This describes the general principle mathematically of what we're trying to do. You may not have math, you may have something else. And then we talk about the experimental approach. So this is kind of what we're doing in the experiments. And we have subsections. For example, this is section 4, and 4.1 talks about this specific problem, and this talks about this specific problem. And then you may have a diagram to explain what your research is. This is helpful for your reader to understand. And then there are some figures here. And then you're going to talk about the results. So the results will basically go over what you found from your experiments if you had data. If you didn't have any results, you may talk about something else here in the discussion. And then the last piece is going to be your conclusions. And here you'll see in your conclusions, usually there's some key factors you want in your conclusions. You want implications of this work. So like, why is this work important and what does this mean? The second thing is limitation. You want to be honest, saying, hey, we're not solving every problem in the world. We're just solving these specific problems. And then you want to have a section on future directions, potentially, of where you want to take this research next, or what someone should be inspired to do next. So that would be the brief tutorial on the paper structure. The next thing you're going to want to do is literature search. So once you have your topic for your paper structure, and you want to start doing literature search, this is how I would go about doing it to get started. So here's the overview of what we're going to be doing. So let's go over Google Scholar first. So I'll open up a browser tab. And here's a browser tab, and I'm going to go to scholar.google.com. And here I can type in anything I'm interested in. So let's say I'm interested in health. And you want to be specific enough. So I'm going to talk about exercise and cardiovascular disease, because this is something I'm interested in. And I find here there's a bunch of articles here. And here you can organize it by time. So if you want articles that are more recent, you may look here. If you want to look at more old articles, you may include that. And usually you don't care too much about patents, but you may be interested in that. And here you see the citation count. So citations basically tell you how many other people referenced this particular article. And so, for example, this one has 1,347 people who referenced this article. So that's a lot. Anything over 100 is going to be very, very highly referenced. Anything in the thousands is going to be extremely highly referenced in that specific field. So let's go specifically and talk about cycling, because that's something I'm interested in. And I can see here, here's a study about this. It has 224 citations. So what this allows you to do is quickly see what's the different topics that are covered in this search term. And the citations give you kind of a weighting of how important a certain research article is. The next thing you want to do is, let's say, for example, you look at this article, and this article is published in this journal. So I click this, and this journal here is BMJ. And I want to know, how important is BMJ as a journal? How important is this, and how prestigious is this? So then I would look up in a separate tab the BMJ impact factor. You can see Google already knows I'm looking for that. And the impact factor tells you how well referenced this journal is where it's published. Now, impact factor, the higher the impact factor is, the better. And for impact factors in general, anything above 10 is good, very good. Anything above 20 is really good. So let me just show you really quickly on Wikipedia. You can see here how impact factor is calculated, how they're used, and what are the kind of the downsides of impact factor. So this is the second way to assess how impactful or important a certain article is. So once you have these two things, you could also use PubMed if you're specifically looking at medical or health related research, and you can look up the same thing here. So I could have the same term here and look up this term, and I could see here the popularity of how this research trend has been changed over time. And this brings me to the next topic, which is review articles. So here I want to talk about the power of review papers. So you may say, man, there's so many research articles. How do I know? What should I do with each one? There's just infinity. I mean, I can just keep going and going. So there's actually people in each specific field that take all of the research and give you a summarized view of all of the research. And so those are going to be called review articles. And so the good thing is a lot of times, for example, in PubMed, you can actually click review and it'll only show you review articles. So what I would do is, if I'm interested in a topic, I would look at the review articles that are available. I would pick one that's relatively recent. This is about 9 years old as of today. I would take this article, for example, and I would also look up how many citations it has in Google Scholar. So I'm just going to copy paste that title, and it has 601 citations. This is a very good article, very well referenced in the field. And now they've done all the summary about everything in this topic for me. And the big barrier for a lot of people is that you may not be able to get a full PDF of your research article, but many are still available. So you don't feel discouraged if you find one that's not. And if you have academic login, you obviously would use that. So here, let's see, if I pull down this public, see it's not letting me pull this publication in, but that's okay because I have the abstract here. And this shows me everything that's important in this research. So that covers generally the power of review papers and using that to guide your research instead of having to search through all these million different articles that you may find about a topic. The next piece would be evaluating the quality, which we talked about, citations and impact factor. And then you want to organize the key points from your literature. You can do that on a piece of paper or a notepad. All right, next step is we're going to go to the reference manager. So this is saying, okay, now we have some literature, we got this cool article here, and now we want to reference this. So to do that, there's a software called Mendeley that I use. This is one of the many different reference managers. And you're going to go on mendeley.com and you're going to make an account. So once it loads, you're going to make an account and sign in. Okay, we're back on track. So here's my Mendeley. I log in, and it's free, so you can use this for free. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to download Mendeley Desktop. So Mendeley Desktop is basically a desktop application, and it looks like this once you download it. And it allows you to organize everything on your computer without the internet. And I'll tell you why that's useful. The third thing you want to install is the Mendeley Chrome plugin. So here you go on if you have Chrome, this is very useful. You go to the extension, and it allows you to quickly import a PDF into your Mendeley. So here's an example. I have this health benefits of cycling. I want to add this to my Mendeley. Here's my Chrome plugin that I've used. Sign into my Mendeley. There you go. There's your health benefits of cycling, systematic review. So the one we're looking at just added right now. Okay, so once you have all your references organized, you can organize them in folders or groups, and you can share groups with people. So for example, you can create a group, and you can share people to add to this same folder. So you can collaborate. Okay, so the next step is we're using Mendeley as our research reference manager. Now you want to make some figures about your research. There's some tools I use for figures. So the first is I'll use Google Images to inspire me. So let's say I want to do some type of figure showing circadian rhythm. So, circadian, or I'll say time-based graph. Let's see what shows up here. Go to Images, and you can see here some inspiration from graphs. Oh, so maybe I like this one, this stacked waterfall. This looks kind of cool. I may go and type in visualization of time data, just as an example if I'm interested in time data. So here's some interesting visualizations, and you can see how they've produced it. And this will start giving you an idea of how you want to organize your data. It's just a really great way. It's kind of like Pinterest, but just using Google. The next thing I'll use is Draw.io. So Draw.io is a web-based software. You can download this onto your computer, and you can draw diagrams very quickly. So for example, if I want to draw a diagram showing a three-step process, I could say process 1, 2, 3, and I have all of this ready to go. I can color it really quickly and have a very nice flow here to show my audience. And what I'll do is I'll zoom in to the screen and make it large, and then I actually just screenshot this and put that in my paper. It's a kind of an easy way to make figures really rapidly. And there's a lot of different little icons you can add here, from basic stuff to like very specific, like this is an AWS based logos, if you're using anything from there, any entity relationships and computing, or you could just have people and basic squares describing your thing. The next thing I use is Keynote, which is actually what you're seeing right here. If you're doing something with computing, you can use Icon Monster. Icon Monster is actually free, and you can find cool icons to add to your diagrams. Like here's a graduation one. Here's a dollar tag. You could search for something like a power button. There's like a power button on your app. Or you could search for something like email if you have something that you message someone, or maybe something that's related to health. You could type that in. It's a nice way to add a little touch to your visualizations. And then obviously there's Excel and Tableau to visualize data, and I'm not an expert at that, so I'm not going to go into that. And you can look up other stuff to see that. Next piece is document prep. So document prep, we're going to use Overleaf. And let me show you how Overleaf works. So you go to overleaf.com and you're going to have a login like this. This is my personal one, just as an example. And you're going to have all these projects. And for example, if you wanted to have a template, you could find a new template. So you could go to here and say, find templates from like academic journal. And here's example templates. And these are all pre-made in the code of the LaTeX. So let's take an example. So one of the ones I've used, I can just show you that. And usually if someone's working with you who's more senior, they may have something ready to go. So here's an example one. This one was from political analysis. And this is what a LaTeX code looks like. If you've never seen it, it's not that complicated actually. There's going to be a few main pieces here on the side of your files in your system. This is the code for each file. And here's the actual compiled image. So, or PDF. So this is what your actual end PDF will look like. So I'll walk you through a paper that I recently just did. And I'll show you what that looks like. So usually you'll add a folder here for images. So you can say new folder, and you would add a folder called images, create that, and it'll show up here. Next, you're going to throw in your figures that you made. So here are 3 different figures. So here's one, and the other 2. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go to your main text, and this is where all the magic happens of how you write your paper. The other thing you're going to have is references, so you may want to also add a new file. And here you'll go to Mendeley, and you're going to actually link your Mendeley. And you can do this really quickly, and then you have all the groups that you created in your Mendeley. I'll show you how this all works in a second. So here inside the code, you may have to add some packages. So these packages help you to compile your PDF. The next piece is your title. So this is obviously what's going to be written here. Authors, if you have any authors, and affiliations. The blue tells you that the paper has a comment. This is just like in writing code. If you don't know how to write code, this basically is like a note on the side. And this is not going to appear inside here. So this is kind of like post-it notes inside your code. Here you're going to have your abstract. So you can see it says begin abstract. You write your abstract. And then there may be some keywords in your abstract. Right here you can see that. And then you're going to say end abstract. And then that's the end of the abstract. All of this is going to be in the template already. So all you have to really worry about is the content in here. And then you'll get started, and usually you'll start with a section, and you can see your section introduction. If you want to add a new section, all you have to do is put in the slash, type in section, and then it'll auto-populate, and you can write your section name, and it'll auto-number the sections in order. So here you'll write everything out, and if you want to cite something, I'll just do this citation. Let's say you have a sentence. Here is my sentence. And at the end of the sentence, you want to cite something. You would put the slash, say cite, C-I-T-E, press enter, and then all the citations will be populated. Let's say I want to cite something that's right here, the same one. I'll say organization, and boom, it shows up. And this is kind of keyword that'll remind you of the paper you're trying to cite. So you click that, and you can just press period, and this will actually give you the numbered citation in the references. So that's how you add a citation. When you want to add a figure, you're going to use a code like this, and this code snippet will be there as an example in many of the templates. You'll begin a figure. This allows you to have the figure in the center, so it's not off to the side. The next piece will be is if you want to include the image, which one. So you'll say in the folder images, which is right here. And then here is the file name, continuum. So that's this one right here. Go back to the main text, and you just type that in. Here's the caption. So this is what it'll say below your figure. And then this is a label, so you can reference it later. So you can see here is my label, and the label I referenced the label here in this sentence. So here is what it'll look like in the code once it's compiled. It'll say if you said figure, so I said typed out figure, and then I said reference this figure, and you can see it says figure 1, and the 1 is referring to the first figure, figure 1 here. So that's how you add a figure, and you could just copy paste this and add a new, replace this with your other image, and then boom, you have another figure. You can add that into the code. And here you can see all the other citations, etc., etc. So that's how you add figures. And if you want to add a table, this is another thing, or an algorithm. Here's an algorithm, for example. If you have any questions on how to add something into the LaTeX, just type it in Google. Like, for example, I want to know how to do an algorithm in Overleaf. And there's usually a help, and I'll show you very quickly how to write an algorithm, what it will look like. You just literally take this and copy paste this into your main text file. If you want to add some space, for example, I have a little bit of space here, 5 millimeters, you can use this command V space, and it adds a little bit of space at the bottom. Last piece, if you want to add a table, by the way, if you double click anywhere on this side, it goes exactly to that location in the code. And here's a table. You can see this looks really complicated to type out. So what you can use is a simple thing called LaTeX table generator. And this is one I like to use, latextablegenerator.com/LaTeX tables. And here you can type in, you can just get a Excel spreadsheet, something that you made as your table, copy paste it in, generate the label for how you want it to be known in your code, and then just say generate, and then here's the code. And all you have to do is take and copy this to your clipboard and then paste it into your document. Here's the caption. Once you finish, you'll have a bibliography, and you don't have to do any work for the bibliography. This is the awesome part of using Mendeley and the reference manager. So all the bibliography is automatically written out for you because of the reference to your Mendeley account and the citations that you wrote in all of your text. So everything is going to come out super smooth just like that, and you don't have to do any extra work for your bibliography, like when you may have been in elementary school and had to manually write all this out. So that's in short how you are going to do use LaTeX and add text, figures, and charts, and anything else, such as an algorithm, etc. All right, and the last piece is now if you want to make sure your text is written well, I use this service called Grammarly. And Grammarly basically allows you to very quickly check your grammar and how interesting your text is, etc. So you create an account on Grammarly and just say a new document. It'll just be a white space. And let's say I want to do a Grammarly check on my abstract, which, by the way, you should do a good job on because that's the first thing people will read. So here you can see Grammarly is checking all the spelling, punctuation, but also more stuff than just that. So here you caught this, and you can update these once you confirm them and say, oh man, this is actually better, or this is better. Or maybe it not be. If it's not something that's better in the sentence, you can just trash it. So that's how you'd use Grammarly, and once you finish this, you can re-copy paste this whole text and just throw it back into the document here. Quick note, if you want to bold or italicize something, all you have to do is click the word you want and just do your Command B for bold, or do Command I for italics, and you'll see text italics is IT, and text bold will be text BF, so bold font or bold face. And so that's just a quick primer on that. And there you go. And once you have it and you finished writing your whole paper in the code, you'll say compile, and it'll recompile the whole paper with all the adjustments you made. And now you can download this as a PDF from Overleaf, and the PDF will show up very professionally made with all the formatting all done for you. So that's the tutorial of all the different elements that I wanted to go over with. And we went over Grammarly and the publishing method of your choice. It could be an open source or peer-reviewed journal. That'll be up to you. So hopefully that was helpful, and please put any questions in the comments.